Welcome in, guys, to my AFC West draft grade. This is the final. This is the final part of me talking about the draft for 2025, and after that, we have the preseason, and months later, and then the regular season, baby. So let's get this going, man. We're gonna start off with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now again, we all know that the AFC West is the Kansas City Chiefs division. No doubt about it. It's been their division for the last number of years. They own the AFC West, and really, you look at the Chiefs. So the last couple of performances, I think, from the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, especially 2024 Super Bowl, the Super Bowl from last season, 2024, and even 2023. It's mostly been their defense side of the ball has got them out, has got them winning a championship. Really, like, if you look at, like I said, last season, 2024 and 2023, it was their defense side of the ball that won them the championship. Well, 2023 when they won the Super Bowl, and then 2024 when they lost the Super Bowl thanks to Mahomes. So going into when was the last time that Patrick Mahomes? I know the media are like, oh my god, Mahomes. Again, Mahomes is great. I was talking to a friend yesterday, maybe. Well, it was yesterday, I think. And we were talking about, fanboys and stuff like that. But yeah, Mahomes, again, he's 30 years old, and he's a two-time, multiple time Super Bowl champion, three-time Super Bowl champion. But again, when did he have a stand-up performance? When was the last stand-up performance he had individually at a Super Bowl? You know, that's just a question, because it's like. But anyway, the additions that they needed this, especially on the Chiefs side, I think they needed to work on the offensive on that offensive line, because if you looked at that Super Bowl game they had with the Eagles back in February, you could see the offensive line wasn't protecting Mahomes. Mahomes was getting turned over. His play calling, his in-game play calling wasn't the best. So they needed some protection around. They needed to freshen. They needed some new starters on the offensive line, and they drafted Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio. I think he's going to be, again. He's probably going to be a day one starter on the offensive line for the Chiefs. I think he's a weapon that he's a guy that you need to freshen up that offensive line to keep. Again, with a winning team, we've seen it with like the Patriots in the past, and other successful teams. They have to keep changing teams, and this Chiefs team has in the past. They from Tyreek Hill to Byron Pringle, and so on and so on. You understand what I mean. So again, getting Josh Simmons is great. And then they go second round pick. They draft Omar Norman Lott, defensive tackle from Tennessee. Again, at some point you're gonna have to find another a replacement for Chris Jones. I know he's a Hall of Famer, but he is he's at the end of he's at the twilight of his career. Hall of Famer, no doubt, but you need to find somebody that's going to be that long-term fix at a defensive tackle. Now you have Nick Bolton in there as well. Him and Chris Jones have been really solid and really fantastic together. Especially when Nick Bolton has been there the last 2-3 years now. But I think again down the road you're going to have Omar Norman Lott and Nick Bolton going to be your two defensive tackles for the next couple of years. So again, you're probably gonna have Norman Lott. He's gonna be like a deputy to Chris Jones for 25. Then you go to the third round, and you have Ashton Gillette, defensive end, again beefing up that defensive side of the ball, which again is an addition that they need. Then they draft Noah Williams, cornerback from California, which again more additions on that defense side of the ball, which I'm a fan of. They need to address that side of the ball and refresh. That was part of the defense. That defense needed a bit of a freshen up and a bit of a rebuild, to fix, especially on the quarterback side of things. And then they traded pick away to the Patriots, and then they addressed what they needed. And coming into this draft, they needed a wide receiver, because again, DeAndre Hopkins was released. You don't have DeAndre Hopkins anymore as a weapon. So you need somebody else on that wide receiving core with a Pacino and to help to be a weapon for Mahomes, and having having Jalen Royals as a wide receiver from Utah. I think he has potential to be a good starter. I've seen his tape. He looks pretty impressive. Then they go back on and the 5th round pick. They go back for Jeffrey Boza, linebacker from Oregon. Again, he's going to be helping Nick Bolton in that linebacker side of things. Then they traded a couple picks to the Steelers, the Titans, the Jets, and the Cardinals, and then back to the Steelers again. So what I like again with this approach from the Chiefs is that they're getting some cap space for 2026, 2027, 2028. And then the last pick that they made was Bradshaw Smith, running back from SMU. Again, he could be like a deputy secondary running back. But for this draft class, I'm gonna give it a I'll give it a 6 out of 10, I guess. I think no, I'll give it a 6 and a. I'll give it a 6.5. I'll say, because what I like with this draft approach, they addressed parts of that defensive side of the ball, which was the main focus of. They've got themselves an offensive tackle in Josh Simmons, which again, great addition. And Jalen Royal, I think a wide receiver, I think that's a pretty good steal. I think in the fourth round, I think from Utah, I think Jalen Royal's coming in. He's a steal as well. So I'm gonna give them like a 6.5, 7. It wasn't a bad draft. Then you go into the Raiders. Then you go into like the Raiders, and then really for the Raiders, they're in a kind of a win mode. They're in a championship winning mode now because they hired Pete Carroll for 2025, and again, you're hiring a mid-70-year-old head coach in his 4th head coaching job of his career. So again, you've got to go all in now and see what you have. But again, the best draft pick I think for the Raiders was getting Ashton Jeanty, running back from Ohio State. Like, he was the best running back in this class by a country mile, and that's no fact. Like the upside that he can potentially go to at the NFL level as a starter for the next 5-10 years. Like, if the Raiders actually get their heads out their ass and actually Mark Davis fucking sells the team or whatever, and has and gets something going, you could actually have something good with Jeanty. Like, if you've got Geno Smith coming in, again, you could have something good with the Raiders this year. Like, you have Geno Smith coming in, who he's not going to be the guy that wins you championships, but he's the guy that's going to at least get you challenging, get you into the playoff positions, and he's going to hopefully get you to at least try to get a playoff place, because again, you've been in the playoffs for 23 years. It's, so Jeanty coming in was a great addition, and they traded away a couple picks, like two second round picks to the Dolphins and the Texans, and then they draft Jack Batch, wide receiver from TCU, which again I think was a good pick. I've seen him on tape. I think he's going to be a good weapon for Geno Smith on that offensive side of the ball. They needed a lot of additions, especially at running back with Jeanty. They needed an offensive line. They needed a cornerback, defensive. They needed a new star on the offensive line. They needed a cornerback, defensive line, a wide receiver. And I think Jack Batch is a good addition to TCU. And then you go back for the defense side of the ball for Darmian Porter, cornerback from Iowa. Again, you need to get bodies in numbers, and again, Darmian Porter is a good addition. And then they traded again with the whole thing with Geno Smith going over to Vegas now. Seattle will also get their draft pick in the 4th round. Then they had another 4th round pick for Caleb Rogers, offensive line. So again, they're fixing the offensive line, fixing the trenches on the offensive side of the ball, which is great. Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech, and then Charles Grant, offensive tackle from William and Mary. Again, you're probably gonna have two maybe starters. I'll probably say Caleb Rogers is a starter, and Charles Grant secondary as a starter. But again, you're beefing up that offensive line to protect Geno Smith. Great. Then you get Dante Thornton, wide receiver from Tennessee. Again, he's probably gonna be like a wide receiver 3 type deal. Then you traded away pick to the Dolphins. And the last couple of picks, you get Cam Miller, cornerback from North Dakota State, and Cody Lindenberg, linebacker from Minnesota. You get quarterback Tommy Miller, quarterback. Again, he's going to be a backup for Geno Smith. So again, you got yourself like a backup third quarterback type deal. And then JJ defensive tackle from Ole Miss. And the last pick that they drafted was Tatanka Hemingway, defensive tackle from South Carolina.